Welcome to Saga Sessions, a show where we explore, analyze, and discuss our favorite stories. Welcome back, everybody. Nick and I are here to discuss the third installment in the Indiana Jones franchise, which is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Thank you for having me back on.
I am very excited to have you back on because
I can see that you're all dressed out for it, too.
Yes. I got good feedback on the fedora from the Temple of Doom episode, which you can watch by clicking on the card above. So I figured, let's go all out this time. Why not? We'll see if I can top this for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I don't know how, but maybe we'll think of a way. Who knows?
Just got to bring a bullwhip for it.
Just need a bullwhip. But anyways, Nick, you told me in the last episode that the Temple of Doom was your favorite Indiana Jones film. Do you still feel that way after rewatching The Last Crusade?
So I think how I feel about each Indiana Jones movie is when I watch it, it's my favorite because you just pick up everything new every time. I think Temple is still probably my favorite because it is the most different and it is very a little bit more mature than the other ones. But as I was told you earlier, Last Crusade is the one that I've watched the most. And I think it is the most rewatchable of all of them. I think it's the funniest of all of them. I think it has the most gags, and it is a perfect movie as well.
I do agree that it is the most rewatchable of all five of them. I do have to say, in the Temple of Doom review, I misspoke when I said that Temple of Doom was my least favorite Indiana Jones film. It's my least favorite of the original trilogy.
I see.
Not out of all five. See, when we were talking during that review, for some reason, I kind of forgot that Kingdom and Dial of Destiny existed. Just for like a few seconds when I made that comment.
That's okay to do. That's okay to do sometimes.
I was just thinking, in the confines of the original trilogy.
So what would you say is your least favorite of all five?
Probably Dial of Destiny, but I don't dislike that movie, and we'll talk about that one eventually. It's on the to-do list. But actually, what's your least favorite?
I would agree with you. And again, I don't think it's a horrible movie either, but it is definitely my least favorite. Crystal Skull is more of just a nostalgia thing for me.
Sure.
And then this one was, it had a lot more issues than I would like in an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, agreed. But bad Indiana Jones is better than no Indiana Jones, I think.
That's right.
All right, Nick, you want to dive into some behind-the-scenes tidbits on this film?
Love to, yeah. Obviously, this is the third installment of the trilogy. They signed on to do 3, and then the other ones came decades down the line. But this is the third one, and it's, there was a lot of hoopla about what it would be about. I think it was supposed to be called Indiana Jones and the Monkey King.
Really?
It was, and it was supposed to be a Monkey King was going to be kind of holding them captive, and they were going to be playing chess with human people, and every time someone got taken, they were going to disintegrate them. And there was a little bit more to it, but then there was a lot of issues that they came up to that they didn't want to do any of that stuff, which I understand.
So are we talking like Indiana Jones meets the Planet of the Apes?
I really don't know what the actual idea was behind all of it. But then there was also another script that George Lucas wrote, which was supposed to be the Haunted Mansion. I don't know if you've ever heard about this. This was a very famous
I've never heard of this
idea that Lucas wanted to do, where it was just going to be like I don't know if it was supposed to be kind of like Vincent Price and the House on Haunted Hill, the old 50s horror movie. I think it was supposed to be something a little bit like that, where there was a lot of gags to it, and there was one guy running the whole thing. Ended up they didn't want to do that, so they did add in a mansion or a castle, haunted castle. Sorry, that's what I meant. They did add in a castle later in this movie, just to kind of appease George Lucas, which he seemed happy with. But so yeah, they kind of bounced around a couple of ideas. Then they landed on the Holy Grail. Obviously, I believe it's an actual biblical artifact that people always talk about.
Right, similar to the Ark of the Covenant.
That's right. And I think it was Spielberg who wasn't interested in doing the Holy Grail. But I guess Lucas wrote up, maybe about half a script and showed him, and he said, all right, it looks good, but, he wants it more about a family thing. Wants to bring in his Indiana Jones' dad. Now, obviously, Steven Spielberg is very well known for family-oriented films. Not saying they're just all for families, but they're really in-depth in a father-son relationship is what it goes for. Now,
can you think of any examples?
The Fabelmans is obviously the biggest one. It's just like an autobiography of his life.
Right.
Where the relationship between him and his dad are struggling. They tend to fray away from certain things, but it's very interesting to see that. Obviously, Jaws has the big one with Chief Brody and his son, his two sons actually, and the trauma from the shark, and then how he reacts with his youngest son, stuff like that. He always plays into the father-son thing because that was a big part of his life once his parents got divorced, like how he dealt with all that. So this was more of a family piece for him.
And thank goodness for that, because I love the relationship, the growth of the relationship between Indy and his dad.
I agree. It's the best partnership in any of the Indiana Jones movies. Mm-hmm. I know you say Short Round is your favorite of the trilogy. I think Henry Jones Sr. is the best.
It's a tight race. While I love the character of Short Round and he's my favorite Indiana Jones character, I do have to say that the relationship between Indy and his dad, the banter that they have, the growth of the relationship, the story arc beats.
Right. It's really, really well written out.
It is.
And for something like this where, like Spielberg wanted this added on to the story of the Holy Grail, it could have just gone so poorly. It could have been poorly flushed out. There was nothing, no actual growth to it, but, the mind of Lucas was, made it as good as he could. But obviously we also know Sean Connery had a lot of input, very funny input, apparently, where he was, I guess the dad was supposed to be more of conservative, uptight kind of guy, I guess more just like not as fun. And then
because he's a very fun character.
He is. And then Connery shows up, and I think Connery essentially just says, I want to be this guy who goes around the world and sleeps with all these women, and I'm an archaeologist, and like changes like the whole character.
An archaeological James Bond.
That's right.
It's funny because Steven Spielberg said that he wanted to make a James Bond film, and then for the third Indiana Jones film, lo and behold, he gets James Bond himself.
That's right. And apparently it wasn't much of a negotiation. Apparently he wanted to do it. So that's awesome too.
A fun tidbit on Harrison Ford and Sean Connery. You might know the actual number, but Sean Connery is not old enough to be Harrison Ford's father. There's like I know I'm getting this number wrong, but it's like a 7-year gap.
12-year
gap so between them.
Harrison Ford was 46 and Sean Connery was 58 at the time.
Okay.
Which is so impressive and amazing to see their acting skill that they can pull it off to actually make it believable that it's a father-son relationship.
Absolutely.
But I think we'll get to that in a few minutes.
You wanted to discuss the score.
I did. I think the score is the best of the entire series, and I think it's actually one of John Williams' best scores in general.
Really? Okay.
And I think it stands out a little bit more from the first two. He obviously got nominated one of 54 times. He's been nominated for an Oscar.
Did he win for this one?
He did not win. The Little Mermaid won this year. But one thing, so obviously this movie has the Indiana Jones theme, which is the biggest draw to it, but it's so many little things throughout this movie that the score plays into. And, John Williams is famously known for filling a movie with score. A lot of his movies will run for, 2+ hours, and there's about an hour, 50 minutes of music going on in it. Like, he runs long scores. And there's just so many moments where it's like little music going on. Like, for example, my favorite is the villain theme of this movie. Every time
Is it Walter Donovan's theme?
Walter Donovan and the head Nazi and Elsa, and when they all get together, and then it shows up again later down the movie when they're kind of battling it out, and the Nazis show up again, and it's my favorite theme of the whole series, that one little part of it. There's also just the Holy Grail theme and the Grail Knight theme, which shows up at the beginning when they find the brother of the actual, the one who's holding the shield, the corpse of him. And then it shows up at the end when they find the knight with all the goblets. Great theme. And then there's like little ones that pop up throughout as well. Like there's a reference to the Ark of the Covenant. There's a reference.
Really?
And just for like 2 seconds, you can hear the Ark theme from the original movie.
At what point in the movie did they play that?
This is when they're walking through the catacombs of Venice.
Okay.
And there's all the paintings on the walls. And Elsa's like, "What's this one?" And it's a painting of the Ark of the Covenant.
Right.
And he says it's the Ark of the Covenant. She's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Pretty sure." There's so many, and once we do a walkthrough, there's so many little references, and it made me realize Spielberg loves throwing a bone to the audience. He rewards us for being invested audience members, which I just love about him. But yeah, so the music is just so important to the movie, and I think it really does stand out as his best. I think the only one that's probably better is Jaws out of all his movies, but of course I haven't seen every movie that he's done.
You're pretty biased when it comes to Jaws, aren't you?
It's my third favorite movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty tough to beat for me.
We got to talk about that one sometime.
I will say, though, the some of the themes in this, like the villain theme, I think is better than most stuff from Jaws, music-wise.
Okay.
But I still think Jaws is a better, more strongly composed score for them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the tone of the film, and I guess we can do this by beginning with where we left off, which is with the Temple of Doom. And we discussed how one could argue that the Temple of Doom had a mean spirit. We had a conversation about that during our last review. I still am not totally sure what a mean spirit means, but it's certainly a darker film. It's a big tonal shift from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it almost feels like they, due to some backlash, they almost had to do some damage control and bring the third one like back to not just Raiders level, but make it even almost more lighthearted.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Spielberg said that when they were making the movie, the whole point of it was as like an apology. Essentially, is because he felt, obviously we talked about how there's a lot of stuff going on in their personal lives when they were making Temple of Doom, and they just felt a little bit more, grumpy most of the time, and that it produced a movie that wasn't as child-friendly, it wasn't as lighthearted. So this movie, I think they wanted to go back to it, and you're right that they kind of pull it a little bit even further back, to where the humor is amped up. This is by far the funniest of them.
It is.
And again, I'll explain all the funny stuff that I think's throughout it. But yeah, like it's definitely a big change. But then again, the big thing about it is it's a great adventure movie, well paced, everything's perfect. But at the end of the day, it's about Indy and his dad, which as I have gotten a little bit older, and like my relationship with my dad has been more and more important as I've gotten older, this movie has been more impactful because of that. Like I think about it a little bit differently each year I watch it, You can have like a really good connection to it that maybe you didn't have when you were younger. You can, and this movie, though it is family friendlier film, it is still very mature in that sense, where the relationship is pretty complex, actually. It's not the type of relationship that you would see in any kid's movie most of the time. because it is about older men and their struggles to please their fathers and stuff like that. I think it's just a really, really interesting thing to add into an archaeology movie. I think it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So another interesting tidbit, obviously we just mentioned Temple of Doom and how dark it was. And if you recall from our review for that movie, we discussed how that movie got a PG rating. And then after Spielberg called up the head of the Motion Picture Association of America and asked for, like a PG-13 rating, asked that they create a PG-13 rating, they did. And The Last Crusade is the first Indiana Jones film to get a PG-13 rating, even though it is the most lighthearted of the 3 original films.
Yeah, it's very funny to see that, but, it makes sense. Obviously, they hadn't put out that rating by that time.
Right.
It's like when the Oscars, the Academy announces they're going to do a new
category,
award, a new category, and it doesn't go into effect for like 2 years because it takes them. I don't know why it takes them a longer time to add stuff in, but it always takes a little bit longer after they announce it.
Can we talk about the leading lady for?
Would love to.
A few moments. Alison Doody plays Elsa Schneider, Dr. Elsa Schneider. Pardon me. And I think she is the most unique Indiana Jones leading lady because she's technically a villain.
She is. And even by the end of it, not really a good person, even though she has her ups and downs. Sometimes she's good, sometimes she's bad. Always still just playing playing it for themselves, very much so. But yeah, you're right. She is I guess, the only leading lady except for maybe Spalko from Crystal Skull. That's just a villain.
See, I consider Marion the leading lady of Kingdom, but
gotcha.
But no, Spalko might actually be like the technical leading lady. I just never looked at it that way before.
Yeah, no, it's not like a leading lady is usually the love interest and stuff like that. Obviously, Spalko is not like that in that movie. In this movie, Alison Doody is the love interest, not just to Indy, but also her father.
Also to
his father.
Yeah, his father. Yep.
So she's a very interesting character. She pretty much plays like a spy of sorts, kind of infiltrates Indiana Jones and his father, and infiltrates it through seducing them of sorts, but then turns out to be an Austrian working for the Nazis. She's a lot of fun. She brings a lot to the movie. I think Karen Allen's tough to beat, but she's definitely, probably second to Karen Allen.
I mean, after Willie Scott, who we don't hate, but after Willie Scott, it's not that hard to rebound.
That's right. Yeah. She's also involved with Walter Donovan,
who, by the way, people might know best today as Grand Maester Pycelle from Game of Thrones.
See, I only remember him from, and I have seen Game of Thrones, but I remember him from
The Empire Strikes
Back.
I forget his name, but he is indeed in that film.
He is one of the Imperial officers in there. And then there is a third villain, so it's a trio of villains. And the third
Elsa, Walter Donovan,
and I can't remember his name, but he's a German soldier, SS officer, who pretty much is kind of like the henchman. Yeah. He's not really like one of the main guys, but he's part of the big three, and he's just playing a straightforward Nazi villain. He's, he brings to the table what he has to.
What I find interesting is that George Lucas specifically wanted to avoid using Nazis again after Raiders of the Lost Ark. But I guess after the Temple of Doom backlash, he realized that Nazis and Indiana Jones was like the perfect formula.
I mean, Nazis are the biggest villain you could have in a movie, just because they're the biggest villain the world has ever had.
The world has ever seen, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a great trio of villains. Sean Connery and Harrison Ford together, what a duo, though.
Great team.
And, you just hear some of those stories where, Sean Connery wouldn't wear his trousers on set during the shoot.
I don't know this one.
During the Zeppelin scene, everybody, it was supposed to be in like the winter time, so people were wearing coats and stuff. But Sean Connery said he was like, I sweat too much and I overheat, so every time the shot would look above the table, he wouldn't be wearing pants. And Harrison Ford started doing that after.
Wow.
And so the scene where they're sitting there talking, neither one has pants on.
That's funny.
So they clearly had like, they had a lot of fun working with each other, and it showed on screen. And there's so many. The whole point, I think, of the relationship between them is we constantly see Indiana Jones attempting to make his dad proud in different situations, while at the same time we see his dad, maybe he's really smart in a certain situation, thinks of something that someone else wouldn't have and does it, and it pulls it off. Or when he does mess up, he doesn't want to tell his son. The plane sequence,
yeah.
Where he says, "Sorry, Junior, they got us," but he shot the own tail off.
Right.
Or, and it's so funny. And once we do a walkthrough, I'll explain a couple things that I thought were really good with it, where the whole point is Indy's trying to grasp that, is the appreciation and his dad being proud of him. But yeah, it's really, I think, really the best synopsis you could take from any of these movies is this one about the father and son.
Well, shall we dive into the film?
Let's do it. Obviously, they start again with the Paramount logo and the mountain opening up on it, and then you cut to the mountain where some Boy Scouts are running through the desert. You see these two young kids. They're probably in their early teens, I would assume, and they're just exploring through these little caves, and they hear these kind of grave robbers digging through, and they pull up and they zoom in on one of the kids' faces as they're viewing him, and it's River Phoenix, Joaquin Phoenix's brother, who tragically passed away really young. And then we see the camera cut to the actual grave robbers, and a very familiar jacket and fedora stand up. And, it's Indiana Jones. It turns around, and I don't know who this guy is. When I was on my way over here, I was like, could you imagine if in 1989 you're going to the movies and you're like, it's the third Indiana Jones movie. I love this series, but you don't know anything about it. And then you sit in there and you say, what is this? This is not Harrison Ford. But
what did I just come to see?
Yeah. They recast the best casting in the world, but no, it turns out he is not Indiana Jones, but they essentially find the Cross of Coronado. All the grave robbers are real excited and, jumping up and down, being crazy. River Phoenix's character, who I think at this point we can assume is a young Indiana Jones, pretty much sends his buddy out to go get help. And he says, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to go, pretty much take this thing back. Sneaks out of there with the cross once they have their backs turned. And a chase ensues where all the grave robbers see him, start chasing him out of the mountain, and they make it to a train, a big circus train.
The circus train, yes.
Now, the train is barreling down. He jumps on, and it's just an absolute mishmash of set pieces. We get to learn a lot about him, which I think is a little bit of just, I think it's the fault of the script to do this, because I don't need to know why Indy has a scar on his chin and afraid of snakes all at the same time.
So you feel that it was too much fan service?
I think so, but, it really doesn't ruin anything for me. I just think it's like, okay, I get what you're doing. It's not the most realistic, but it is Indiana Jones.
Sure.
We see people's faces melt off, so I guess it really doesn't matter.
Hearts getting ripped out of people's chests. Yeah.
The Ark of the Covenant just sucking everybody in. Like, that's, yeah. What are we going with? No, so, yeah, he's doing all these set pieces. He's just jumping around, falls into a pit of snakes.
We learn where he gets his fear of snakes from.
Which, if you saw right before, when they were in the cave, his buddy was afraid of a snake that was slithering on him, and he just picks it up. He's like, it's just a snake, and throws it off.
Yep.
So the moment he falls into an entire pit of them is what kind of freaks him out, which not sure if that would really do it. I feel like you would have to be like aggressively bit by some snakes to get that type of fear if you're so nonchalantly throwing them away.
But they got the message across.
They did. Then there's a scene with a rhino sticking its horn through the top of the train cart, almost lampooning the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a scene where Indy falls into a lion pit and has to pretty much scare off the lion with his bullwhip that he finds. And he accidentally cracks his chin and gets a scar from it, which Harrison Ford has a real-life scar. So yeah, he cracks the whip, gets his chin beat up a little bit, and then ends up jumping into a nice old magic box and sneaking off the train, and just gag after gag. Great stuff. Very Buster Keaton style, Charlie Chaplin. This is the type of stuff you would have seen in those movies, which obviously Spielberg, we've talked about before, is fond of that type of thing. But also, I bring it back to the Fabelmans again because I just found it interesting. The connection of, the movie that he loves was The Greatest Show on Earth.
Right.
And
with Charlton Heston.
And it's about a circus. And I think that's pretty fun too. So yeah, and then he ends up
as he's running off, we get to see that I guess the head of the grave robbers, the one chasing him, admires him. He stands there at first really frustrated, but then a smile
gives him a little
crosses his face.
A little nice little chuckle. So then he runs into his house, and I think we see the dog that is referenced later, Indiana, and we see a gentleman. We don't see his face, but he see his hands writing in what we find out is the Grail diary that he's been writing, and it's Indiana Jones's father. And I know that in the scene, it's not actually Sean Connery in the scene.
Is it not?
It's not, and it's not even his voice, I think. I think someone had to mimic his voice to dub it in.
I always wondered why he was off screen, and even watching it again in preparation for this, I thought he was just off screen to kind of like, save the Sean Connery reveal for later.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it works perfectly to give that reveal.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I think it was just he wasn't on set and they just couldn't do it with some random actor.
Well, it worked.
Yes, it did. And my brother and I always talk about how he and I always quote different parts of the movies.
Mm-hmm.
There was one part where in this scene when he's about to go talk to his dad and he says, count to 20. And he starts counting. He's like, in Greek. And my brother and I always say that when we interrupt each other. We say, in Greek. But yeah, so then the grave robbers show up with, I guess...
The sheriff
and the guy in the white suit.
Their client.
He gets a good life lesson after they have to hand over the cross because the sheriff's there.
Yeah.
Gets a great life lesson from the guy dressed in the fedora. He says, you lost today, kid. Doesn't mean you have to like it. And then puts the hat on his head, and it's the perfect cut where he lifts his head up, and it's in the future, or it's in the present of that time in 1938, where he's all grown up, and he's on a boat, drenched in water, raining, waves coming over, but he lifts his hat up as they put his hat down on River Phoenix, and he raises it as Harrison Ford.
Right. Do you think that's the same fedora? Do you think he kept it?
I think it is because the size difference it's very noticeable on River Phoenix's head that it's a big hat on him.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's the same thing, but
that's pretty cool.
I love it because he lifts his head up and he's got this smirk on his face, like he was just thinking about that whole story while he was getting beat up by some goons. It's so funny. He just got like that smirk. And I know we've also talked about before, Indiana Jones is very, very well known for really good cold opens, right?
Yeah.
So we have in Raiders, the Temple of the Golden Idol. In Temple of Doom, we have my favorite intro, which is the Club Obi-Wan
dance sequence, trade-off, shootout.
Yeah. And then this one was the whole River Phoenix part, which I think is my least favorite of the original trilogy. which I know most people would say it's their favorite.
Really?
I'm
surprised.
And I was trying to figure out why it was, because it's so fun. It's action-packed, really well-paced. It's funny. It's so much. It's because Harrison Ford's not in it. That's it. That's the only thing I could come up with, was that when I'm watching an Indiana Jones movie, I want Harrison Ford to be the Indiana Jones I'm seeing. I think River Phoenix did a great job. He was a really talented guy. I just wanted to see Harrison Ford, though.
Okay, that's really interesting to me, because it's a great point, but now, and we'll save Nick's answer for the Dial of Destiny episode, but now I'm curious about how you felt watching a deep-faked Harrison Ford for the first 15 minutes of Dial of Destiny. 25 minutes of Dial of Destiny.
We will get to that. I do have opinions on that.
Okay.
So River Phoenix got the job. You know how he got the job? He was in good with Harrison Ford because they were on a movie in 1986 called The Mosquito Coast. And I think it's directed by Peter Weir, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen the movie. I was mesmerized by how good it was.
Mosquito Coast?
The Mosquito Coast.
The Mosquito Coast.
Yeah, and it's essentially like Harrison Ford's this dad, Helen Mirren's his wife, and River Phoenix is one of their kids, and they have, I think, 2 other kids in the movie, and they pretty much move out to the jungle to do something, I think, try and bring ice to the jungle. And he's like a scientist, and he's trying to make a way to like preserve ice in the jungle for the native people there.
Interesting.
And he pretty much it's like a dive into like his lunacy. Like he goes crazy.
Really?
It is such a good movie. And I remember always thinking, I like Harrison Ford a lot. I don't really know what I would think about this movie. I threw it on and I was just mesmerized. It was so good. So
I'll have to check it out.
They did that movie 3 years before, and then they were looking for someone to do a young Indiana Jones, and Harrison Ford said to Spielberg, he said, I worked with this kid on Mosquito Coast. Let's do a screen test with him. They did it, and he was just like instantly, he got it. Said that he would be on set, and he would sit with Harrison Ford, and he would just watch him, and he would do these certain mannerisms and these little tics that he has just to get the right, like the perfect style of him. Like that was at the age he was at, that's acting there. But yeah, so that's essentially how he got onto the movie. He would have been one of the best actors we'd ever had if he didn't tragically pass away.
Yeah. So we're on the boat with
Yes.
Indiana Jones, and he has crossed paths once again with the quote-unquote owner of the Cross of Coronado.
That's right. The man dressed in a white suit with a white hat on.
Right. And then he takes the cross and he orders Indy, to be thrown overboard.
Well, hold on. We're missing the best line out of this scene, though.
It belongs in a museum.
So do you.
Right.
Great stuff. I saw in the little documentary they do for the movie, they showed the behind the scenes of this scene, and it was actually on the water, or it wasn't actually on the water, but it was, the setup was so interesting because those waves obviously crash in really hard, and they look really real. What they did was they had an enormous, like, it looks like a giant, like, shovel slide that shoots out water and just dumps it on everybody. And they would just pour that over. Perfect, like, production design on that. It was very cool looking. And it just, it makes the whole scene intense. Obviously, he gets into that struggle then, fights around with some of the guys, does some cool, swings off with a hook and whatnot, and then ends up in the water. So then essentially it cuts to him at school, back in the classroom. This was something I definitely missed from the Temple of Doom. They didn't have one of these sequences. I'm pretty sure every movie except Temple of Doom had a sequence of him being a professor at the school.
Correct. Kingdom has it, as does Dial.
Yep, and obviously Raiders. So he's there and he's discussing something on the board and says X never marks the spot, which is a very funny reference once you get a little bit later into the movie.
Right. I think he says archaeology is the study of facts, not truth. If you're looking for truth, go across the hall to the philosophy class.
That's right. That's a great line.
Yeah.
So then class is dismissed, and Brody's in there, and he shows him the cross, right?
Right. Brody takes it and says it's going to make a fine addition to our museum collection.
Right. And then we see, which I love this scene, he's walking to his office, and he can't get in because every single student wants to talk to him.
He must have been away for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, if he was out blowing up boats in the sea, he must have been gone for at least a few days.
Took some time.
Gets into the room and then sneaks out the window. Very funny scene, just watching him having to climb out, puts his hat on, and then we see some presumably henchmen watching him. They pick him up, throw him in the car. Not throw him in the car. I guess they ask him to get in the car, but
yeah, it's a polite encounter.
Which brings us to Walter Donovan. A cool little tidbit from here, and this is one of the things that Spielberg likes to do with references. I think at the end of the scene, after they're done talking, Walter Donovan's wife comes in, right, and says,
Walter, you're neglecting our guests.
That's right. If you listen closely, in the background on the piano, they're playing the Imperial March theme from Star Wars, which is a reference because Walter Donovan was a Imperial officer.
Right. That's really cool.
And it's something that I think it was Williams who decided to put that in there, but it's something you have to really listen closely to actually catch. So he's talking with him. He's kind of getting the gist of what needs to happen. We lost a man in the field looking for the Holy Grail and yada yada. And he's like, why didn't you send my father to do this? He was like, your father's the one missing. Why didn't you start with that?
I know. It's like, I mean, at this point, we don't know he's a villain.
Yeah.
But he does the typical villain thing of just taking his time to explain everything before the big reveal.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he's a very villainous guy, he looks like, you know?
Yeah.
He's got that look that
you can't trust him.
You can't trust him. So then he says he'll do it. And then that's when we get obviously the map with the lines going across where they fly out to Venice, right?
The signature shot in every one of the films.
That's right. And they still did it in the last one, I believe, right?
They did.
So they fly out to Venice, and Brody's with him, and they're chatting about meeting Dr. Schmidt. Is that her name?
Elsa Schneider. Dr. Schneider.
Yeah. And they're just like, oh, how would we know when we meet him? And she's the one that meets them, and they didn't expect a woman. And there's just an awesome line in this scene where she's like, I recognize you, Dr. Jones. You have your father's eyes. He goes, and my mother's ears, and you can have the rest. And it's just like, it's so silly, but it's just like clearly like he's such a charmer. And then when they start walking and doing some exposition, he's like, he grabs a flower out of like a little shop and hands it to her and gives her a little speech, and they do a great back and forth, and it's clearly their chemistry's great. They already click right away, but he's just got such a way with his words that he just says silly little things like that.
And meanwhile, she's having none of it.
Yeah, no, she does not have much interest.
Yeah.
As we find out, she's into older men than that.
Right.